joined by Bury St Edmunds. Is that the right pronunciation? I don't really know those names. But let's say Ipswich native, Division One scoring leader, multiple Player of the Week in Division One. Um, I think you got the MVP, but we'll come back to that in a little while as well. Your team obviously finished top of the league. Yeah, so Harriet Welham, we're really pleased to have you on the show this evening. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
You're most welcome. So, Harriet, you know, at the beginning of every show, I try and tell people kind of, how I know my guests, and some I know more than others. I've maybe coached with, I've played with, I've worked on different programs with. In your case, Harriet, you kind of first came on my radar a couple of years ago. So probably the year before your team came to Division One. I was aware that Ipswich were just having this amazing season. Obviously Nick was on the show a couple of weeks ago, and he talks about it as just one of those dream years that not everything goes right, but the results are reflect the amount of work that you guys put in the background. And so I became aware of you doing very well, not just you but your team. And then a year later you guys got promoted to Division 1, and you immediately were a very competitive, very tough team. You were clearly the team leader, the floor leader. You were destroying teams, and you guys had a great year last year, and then this year again, you've done it again. So right now, I look back at those kind of 3 seasons, and I'm sure you're going to tell me the story of what led up to that as well, as just 3 of the most prolific seasons of any British player coming on and playing kind of at top level basketball. So I just want to say, as a coach, I'm really humbled watching you play. It's frustrating when it's against my team, and I told you a story probably towards the end of the season. I think we played you maybe mid-March, and that was a big
Yeah.
game for us because it was a game that potentially could have kind of moved those top 3 placings around. We knew that we had to win just to stay in the hunt, and a lot of our screening report was about making sure that we kind of constantly put a body in front of you, and we pressured you, and we forced you to kick the ball out. Now I think for about a quarter, a little bit of that, and then yeah, you decided, right, enough's enough, and I'm going to take over the game. And for a player at any level to average 32 points, to be the most efficient player in the league, that's quite a big boast. So that's kind of, I guess, how we kind of first got to know each other. And you're always very humble. Like after the games, you're always very kind of polite and very professional. And obviously, we really respect that when players and coaches can communicate. And I've already told you how much I hate playing against you this year. But could you maybe tell the audience, tell the listeners, kind of how did that basketball journey start, and how did you get to the point where you are right now?
Yeah, sure. So I've been playing for 10 years now. So I started when I was about 13. I just played at school, and I think every British player says that PE staff always pushed them to go further with it. So my PE teacher said go to some trials, went to the trials, played for Suffolk, got through to Suffolk, played East of England, and then that's where I got picked up by Ipswich. So Catherine James invited me over to one of the sessions on a Saturday morning. So I was there, played under 14s at Ipswich with Christina. Christina was my first coach, and sort of grew up with her, mentor, being my coach basically. She's always been there through everything with me. So yeah, so played 14s, 16s, went to the academy, went to Ipswich Basketball Academy with Nick. 2 seasons there. We didn't have a team, but I stayed for 3 years, and that was the first year of the WEABL. and that's when one of my favourite seasons. So it was me, Charlene, Ash, Amoki, Fran, and Grace. We were the underdogs in that league, and I think that's when we all like really, really found our love for the game and wanting to go further with it. We just had the best season. Just yeah, being the underdogs, wanting to get better. So that's where it really that's where it kicked off for me, I think, because I was always playing socially, like really enjoyed it, but seeing how much you develop in that scenario in the academy, I think that's a real eye opener, and that I think that's where you want to see around 16 is where you want to take it seriously or not, and that was a point where I was like, yeah, I do want to take this seriously, wherever that may be, whether that's a career in coaching or playing professionally. Like all these doors could be opened by playing, so that was a really important year for me. And then the Ipswich women's team sort of folded for a year, so I had to. I went and played for Essex, which is only 20 minutes away from Ipswich. So I went and played there in Division One for a year, and then came back to Ipswich the year they launched again, and that was our undefeated season. We won everything, got promoted from Division Two to Division One, won the cup, and then yeah, I've been there ever since. So I had 10 years playing, one season in Essex, but the rest has been based in Ipswich.
Excellent. And so the only thing you didn't mention is that you've actually already started that transition into coaching. So can you tell me a little bit about that bit of your your professional life now?
Yeah, so I've got a number of different hats. I obviously play still. I coach, assist Nick at the academy, so I'm part of the academy now as a member of staff. Um, I also go into primary schools and coach in primary schools quite often, and I also help around the club. So last year I helped with the under 14s, and yeah, just going into different sessions, running different camps and stuff like that. So yeah, I started coaching when I was quite young. Actually, I think I was about 17, just going into primary schools, and I just loved it doing centre of excellence with all the like year sixes and stuff, and yeah, I just fell in love with it, and um, just getting that energy boost from the kids. Like you could be having the worst day ever, you go into a session of 20 kids who are running around enjoying life, and it gives you that boost. And the same with the older guys. Like it's not quite the same energy boost, but seeing them get better throughout the years, like it's just a buzz like no other.
Well, look, it's clear that you're having a massive impact on the kids that you're working with. Like I say, Nick was on the show a couple of weeks ago, and he spoke very highly of you and what you're doing and the contribution that you're making. Um, but it's interesting because today I mentioned before the show that I've been rushing around, so I don't ever do a lot of research for the show. I like the guests to come on and tell their own stories, and we try and unpick things as we ask questions. But I do try and do a little bit of research so I know who I'm talking about. And I came across a video which I think it was either from earlier this year or last year, and it was Esther Little talking about the impact that you have as a teammate and as a mentor. And I'll send. I mean, you might know the video I'm talking about, but if not, I'll send it to you, because it's really inspiring to hear other players talking about their teammates, both as peers and as the people that they look up to and that they're inspired by. So it's obvious that whatever you've been contributing in that program, not just as a player, but also as a leader, as a as their coach as well, and that must be quite an interesting dynamic. We'll come on to that in a little while. That you're having a big impact with those girls. So tell me, let's the whole focus of these few weeks was to try and unpick a little, but unpick this idea of the coach player relationship from the player's perspective rather than the coach's perspective. Like I could have this conversation with coaches, and they're their perspective, their approach would be a little bit different. But I just wanted to see, I wanted the players to tell me how important is developing that coach player relationship. And you've had enough coaches to have, been influenced by some different approaches to the game, some different teachers. They've probably emphasized different things that are important to them in creating a team, in creating good teammates, in following a philosophy or a particular strategy. So, how important is the player coach relationship to you? And try and answer it first as a player, and then we'll talk to you as a coach.
um, I think it's so important. It's one of the biggest factors, I think. I've played for quite a few different coaches, and I'll be honest, I haven't always got along with them. Especially as a kid, so everyone goes through a phase where they're like, I know better, I'm not going to listen, uh, try and get away with much as possible. Like, not a lot of people can sort of control my personality. So I did go through coaches that absolutely hated coaching me. I didn't enjoy being coached by them. They didn't let me be me, basically. But so in that terms, my relationship failed with them, and I didn't want to work hard for them. And I think that's the main bit for it. But if you find a coach that you relate to and you get along with, it's going to go a long way. Because I'm lucky enough to have Nick now, that we get on very well. We know what each other are thinking most of the time. We've got a great relationship, so you want to work hard for them. And I've had that with very few coaches, I have to say. But best believe if I find a coach that I get along with and I want to work hard for, I will. And that was a lucky thing about me getting into it at such a young age. I had such a good relationship with Christina, um, growing up, and she was there until about under 16s, and then Nick took over. So in my head, I've only had two true coaches, and then I've had other people that have sort of taken over, done little bits, but they're the people that I've listened to, learnt the most from, responded to. And for me, it was just having people that keep you on the straight and narrow, I think, because if someone gives me an inch, I'll probably take a yard, and I'll take the mick with some people as well. So if I have a good relationship with them, they'll rein me in, and they'll tell me what to do, and I'll respect them, and I'll listen. And I think that's just so important, to have that trust and having the relationship that, right, if you cross the line, you're going to disappoint me, and not wanting to do that. Not wanting to let your coach down is massive. If you're okay with letting your coach down, there's something wrong with you, I think, whether that's on or off court. But yeah, for me as a player, it's just so important. And like, I think I'll be better now that I'm older. But if I was to go away when I was 16 and I wouldn't have got on with the coach, I think that would have been game over for me. I would have struggled massively. But yeah, the older I've got, I think the better I'll be now. I think you just get a little bit wiser with it, and you understand more. But yeah, it has taken a lot from me to have a good relationship. But yeah, like I said, I've been very lucky to have two main coaches and had really, really good relationships with them on and off court. So I just think you work harder for them. If you trust them, you wanna do better for them, and it goes a long way with the team as well. Like for me, I'm the captain, so if I have a good relationship with the coach, everyone else should do as well. And I'm just another person that they go to, so I go to Nick. It's just another form of communication as well. Like, there's so many layers to it. It's just so important.
Excellent, excellent. You know what? That is literally the most I've ever heard you speak, and it's
you
and I
you
know,
usually
and
catch me after a game.
I do.
I don't want
That
to
is
speak.
fair. That's true. That's true. You ignore the opposition in the warm up, and then you can barely talk after the game. So that's fair enough. Um,
It's because I'm
just
knackered.
you picked up on so many kind of good points there. You talked about the importance of trust. You talked about, if you don't want to work hard for a coach, there's something really wrong. And I think that's an absolutely massive thing. And I think any coach any coach that can say that they've never had a player that they maybe failed to connect with, or they failed to be able to get on a similar wavelength to, is probably lying, or lying to themselves.
Mm.
So I think, there's some really key things there. Tell me, now that you've started to make that transition, tell me, how has that maybe started to shape you as a coach in terms of your philosophy, your approach, um, the way that you try and get to know your kids and your players. How has that influenced your coaching style?
I think it definitely gives me a head start because personally, I know what I like and what I don't like, and I think a lot of people are quite similar with that as well. So for me, having good experiences and having bad experience, it just makes me realize what I should be doing as a coach. So for me, it's so important to have a good relationship with the people I'm coaching, whether they're 6 years old or 16 years old. Um, Being able to communicate with them in a way that I know they're going to respond. Like even on the women's team, for example, just being the leader on that team, I'll speak to Danny Casey completely different how I'll speak to Esther and like Charlotte as well. I just speak to them all differently, and because I know that I can get the best out of them by speaking them to them in different ways. And I don't think many coaches bother to do that. That's why I think Nick is so good at that because he can relate to everyone on their level. And for me, that's what I want as well. Like I don't want kids in school as well. If I've got a naughty kid and I've got best behaved kid, they're going to get the same treatment from me. Like I'm not going to stop trying with the naughty kid because he can't concentrate. I'm going to help him. I'm going to tell him that I was like that once and you can do it, and just to run around and get some energy off. And it's just relate. I think being relatable is so important, and yeah, just being able to communicate, being relatable, having trust. Because if you don't, yeah, if you don't trust, you're not going to get anywhere. And just being that person that they are willing to look up to, willing to speak to, yeah, it's very important.
Excellent. So, you talked about the coaches that um, that you've got on well with, and you've got a lot of respect for those coaches. If you can think back to some of the times when maybe those relationships didn't work so well, um, can you like, hindsight's 2020, so you can look back now and say, well, with my 20, are you 23?
Yeah, 23. Yeah.
With your 23-year-old head on as a player, can you think about, what did you ever feel like you could go to that coach and say, look, this isn't, something's not quite working here, can we work this out, because I want to play basketball, I want to do the right thing. At what point did you get to a point where you could say, right, I need to take responsibility for how this communication's working?
Yeah, I was quite late to the maturity party, to be honest with you. So when I was like 16, 17, I was I loved to mess about. I was still there for the social. So with the group of girls I had, I still loved to mess about, like have a bit of a giggle and not really know where the line was. So coaches struggled with that, and I completely see why now. Seeing it from both sides, but yeah, I think just I'd love to go back and speak to all the coaches that I've had and just reminisce and be like, yeah, I know I was like that at that age, but like things have changed now. But it's just something that you're going to struggle to do, and I hope the coaches that have coached me in the past are like sort of look and think, oh, she did do all right in the end, and like I'd love them to think that. And I'll never take it. I've learned something from every coach I've had, so I'm never going to take anything away from them. I might have enjoyed myself, I might not have, but I've learned something from everyone, and whether that's good or bad, I owe a lot to every coach that I've ever had. So for me, it was a fact of just maturing and being old enough and wise enough to realize that it's not all banter for everyone. Like people are not there just to have a good time. Like I remember going, we had a Thursday session 8 till 10, and us academy girls, we've been training all week. We were tired. We weren't really bothered about being there. But for the older people like Kirsty and Kat and Amy Linton, that was their only session, and we were sort of like taken away from that. But now I'm that player where that is my only team session. I sort of see it from both ways. So it is just it's you get wiser as you get older, and I think that's the main thing for me. I've learned from my mistakes, and yeah, I'm getting better with age, hopefully.
You definitely are getting better with age. I mean, look, in terms of what you're bringing to your team now, and it's not, we talked about you being a scoring leader. It's clearly not just about your ability to put the ball in the basket. It is about, the way. Again, I go back to what Esther Little said. She talked about the way that the rest of the girls feel when you're on the floor. That is a big thing, because I've coached teams where we've had very prolific scorers, but in a way they almost took away from teams, or they didn't know how to make their team better. It appears that you've found a way to be prolific, be a pain at the defensive end, be an athlete at the defensive end, be very solid at the offensive end, but also you found a way to give confidence to your teammates, and whatever that secret sauce is that you found. And you've mentioned a few things about talking to people on their wavelength, working out what makes them tick, finding ways for them to want to work hard. It seems that you're part of the solution there. So, whilst I will always give kudos to Nick, who I think is a great guy. We've known each other longer than I'd remembered, but we've known each other a long time, and particularly during lockdown, we've spoken a lot about the game, and about the women's game in particular, and what Ipswich do and what we do, and what we look for other teams to do in terms of raising the quality of the league. You're part of that kind of aspiration that that young kids should have. I'm going to talk about kind of how you aspire people as well, in another question, but just for now, tell me about how difficult it is to be a coach to the girls that you then play with during the week, and how does that dynamic work for the team, good or bad, or challenging, or otherwise.
Um, I don't really see any issue with it. There's obviously times if I'm at work, I'm at work. If I'm a player, I'm a player, and that's a line that even now we're still trying to like figure out what's what. But for me, it's so important to when I'm a player, I'm a player. Like I'm not your coach at the weekends. I can mentor you. I can help you, but I'm one of you, and I think like that's so important. And I keep saying to Nick, like, I still want to prioritize my playing right now. So the coaching at the moment is still coming second best. But for me, it's so important to be able to have that relationship that I am just a teammate. Like on a Wednesday, I'm sitting on the bench and I'll have all the answers to all your questions, and um, I'm that authoritative figure. But on a Thursday night and a Saturday is completely different. Like I'm one of you. I might be a little bit older. I might be a captain, but I think that's a good thing about it as well. Because even when I am at work, they like I'm still their teammate, like deep down. So they feel comfortable around me. They can be honest with me. They can say what they're feeling. They're not afraid to ask questions. So it's such a good thing. Like I'm on their level, I think, and I can understand like I've been in their position. I've played throughout the academy, and I can relate very well to them. So for me, there's not much of I wouldn't say I'm your coach, do this. I'll be like, right, this is what we're doing. But at the weekend, it just flows. Like there's no real this is me, this is me. It just flows and it's quite natural, which is always healthy, I think.
Excellent. So, do you excuse me, do any of the other girls, do they have they started looking at coaching, and are they inspired by what you're doing, kind of, coaching as your profession, and then playing as well?
I think I'm a different case because a lot of the other girls are going to go to university and they're going to go to the States and they're going to be successful. They're going to carry on their playing career for a long time from now. But for me, going to university was never really for me. I didn't want to carry on my education for much longer. So for me, it was like at the time it was the only door that was open, and like I laugh about it now. Like if I wouldn't know what to do, what else to do right now. I've got no real like qualifications. I'm good at coaching basketball. I've fallen in love with the game, and it's pretty much all I've got. So for a lot of the girls, like they enjoy coaching. Esther helped out with the under 14 girls. Charlotte helps out with one the Centre of Excellence. So they all everyone gets involved when they can and if they can. But I don't think anyone's got, and I don't blame them at all right now. I don't think any of them have aspirations to take over a team and do that. I think it's so important for them to focus on them playing, and if they've got an opportunity to go to the States, take it with two hands and enjoy your time out there, and then get your education, and then worry about what's going to happen next when if you're back, and what like basketball will open so many doors for them, and they don't even realize, and for them to get a 4 year degree out of that as well will open even more doors, and they're just so lucky that they've got that. But for me, that was just never, it was never for me. I didn't want to carry on my education. University never really struck me as something I wanted to do, but I was lucky enough that Ipswich gave me a job, and I'm still here.
Hey, look, you talk about those girls going on a slightly, potentially taking a slightly different journey to you, but you're still only 23, so you've got years and years of playing basketball if that's what you choose to do. Um, you know, we were talking before the show, and I was working with a girl who had played from she was about 14 till she was kind of into her late 20s, and then took a couple of years out, and now she's 34, turning 35, and she's just come back into the game, and she's still very capable of playing at a high level. So, you've got a long time before you have to think about what you might do next. And just on that other thing you said, you said you're only good at one thing. Well, it's a blessing. It's a blessing and it's a curse. Being good at anything and knowing what it is a blessing, because so many people go through their entire lives not ever knowing exactly what they're good at, um, and definitely never being in a position to follow that dream or follow that opportunity. So in that sense, it's an absolute blessing. And I think, unfortunately, the culture of basketball in the UK still means that basketball coaches, who even those coaches who work for a living, are still kind of looked at as amateurs. They're not looked at as
Yeah,
professionals.
for sure.
But you've got a professional career, and you should be proud of it, and you should really value it, because those opportunities are few and far between. The reason I say it's a curse is because when you work, those jobs aren't always there, and when they're not there, and you might find yourself in a position where you're looking for the next basketball job, or the next coaching job, or the next head director of a program, or head of performance, and those jobs are tough to come by. But I believe, as I'm sure Nick does as well, that you should absolutely chase that dream for as long as is humanly possible, and providing you don't have to, rob or steal to pay to pay your way, and to pay your mortgage, and put food on the table, then you should keep following that. And I'm whispering that bit now because my wife's in the next room, and any good coach knows that we all have to make sacrifices that not everybody else understands. So look, I think, more power to you that you've been, you say that you were lucky enough, but I think luck is by design. Like, you have to put the work in to be lucky. You've obviously done that, and I think you should keep pursuing that for as long as you can. Anyway, I always talk about Nick's going to be like, is he trying to steal my player? Because every time I talk about you, I'm always saying how good you are at this and how good you are at that. Nick actually was telling me last week that well, a few weeks ago, that you are working on adding a new shot to your game, and initially I just thought, oh my god, that is another thing that we've got to go and scout for next year. That is so terribly annoying. But I want you to tell me about your approach to the game. Like, you're 23, you've been playing for 10 years, and you're still trying to be better. You're still trying to improve. Just tell me about where does that mindset come from? How is your approach? Because you've talked a little bit about you were maybe the naughty kid, and then you got 16, and then you decided to take it more seriously. Where did that work ethic come from?
Um, I think it was because I was late to the party pretty much. I was never the star player when I was younger. Um, and yeah, even at the academy, I was for those 2 years that we didn't have a team. It was all individuals, individuals shooting, shooting, individual shooting. So I think that was the year that really developed me. And then yeah, the third year was when I started hitting shots, started scoring, starting to get my name out there a little bit. And yeah, it's just gone from strength to strength really. I'm quite stubborn in the fact that I hate it when the younger people come up and not that they think they're better than you, because to be honest 90% of my team are better than me, but I've just got the mindset of right, I'm not going to let you score on me. And I think that's so important because I don't want to fall behind, and I think that's where my mindset comes from. So all these girls coming through the academy, that they're absolutely flying at the moment, like all of them. Like the way that they've come on is absolutely ridiculous from the 3 4 years that they've been playing for the women's. So for me, it's just a matter of keeping up. Like I always say, I just want to keep up with these guys, and as soon as I start to trip and start to fall and slow down, that's going to be my time to sort of step away from it. But yeah, I just want to be the best player I can be, and because I was late. I was 19 when I started playing, and starting scoring really. So I haven't actually had it that easy. I just used to be like a role player and stuff like that. So and now for people to say, "Oh, all you do is score," like for the undefeated season, they were like, "All you do is score," and I was like, "Right, I'll show you." And it's just that sort of mindset of, oh, I'll prove you wrong, oh, I'll prove you wrong, and yeah, for me that's a big part of it. Like I always want to get better myself, but proving people wrong is one of my favorite things to do, and just yeah, just for people to stand back and be like, oh, she's been working on her game again and stuff like that. I just want to be the best player I can be, not just for me, but for my team as well. So yeah, I think that's a huge part of it.
Well, look, this year you definitely added to your game. You were super consistent. I mean, I think at one point you had a stretch where you were averaging close to 40 points per game, and that for anybody who hasn't watched you play, and thinks that you're just about scoring a lot of those baskets, and even I think back to the game that we played you, that crucial game, kind of back in March. Excuse me. And I know so many of those points actually came from steals at the defensive end. They were like, they were end to end kind of baskets. So it's not just about you waiting to get the ball, on the 3 point line. I mean, you score in so many different ways, and it's kind of frightening to think that you're going to be adding some more stuff to your game, kind of coming into next season. But I kind of I'm kind of excited and terrified at the same time to kind of watch, what that looks like. Excuse me. In terms of, just going back to that point, in terms of those players who think of you just as an offensive player, I mean, this year I actually thought your defense was pretty good as well, and you seem to have
Yes.
gotten the best. You seem
Tell
to
my
have
teammates that as well.
you seem to have got in really good shape this year. I noticed just kind of watching you on court. You seem to have kind of trimmed down a little bit and looking in good shape. I know this year you were dealing with an injury as well, and you were at one point you were pretty much playing on one leg, but you managed to stick that out. How is the injury now, and how do you feel going into next season?
Um, yeah, so the injury has not been the best. I've managed it better than I expected to. So yeah, I lost quite a bit of weight and I found it a lot easier to play. Yeah, so and that helped my game leaps and bounds. I was a bit quicker. I was moving better. Being able to do moves that I've never been able to do before. Being able to play defense, keep in front of people. Um, so yeah, the knee isn't 100%, but again, I don't think it ever will be. As long as I keep getting it as strong as possible, being sensible with it, I'm just going to play through it. I think I keep laughing because I'm at that age where I just keep going until it completely goes, and then if I want to take surgery, then I will. But because I'm not completely struggling with it. There's times that I sit out practice. I don't sit out practice very often, but there's times that I can't do everything that I don't want. Like I can't do. It does get frustrating, but it's just I'd rather do that than sit out for 6 months. So I've always got a fear because I can be quite lazy, especially with like physio and rehab. If I have surgery, I don't think that I would come back. Especially not to the way I'm playing now. So if I can just keep playing how I'm playing and it doesn't slow me down too much, I'm just gonna try and keep on doing it for as long as possible.
Well, look, don't take this the wrong way. I mean, look, my advice as a coach is if you've got an injury, youth is not a cure. It doesn't solve injuries. They don't go away that easily. I would take the time off to get it. That you can't play for Ipswich for half a season, and they find that it's a bit harder without you. I could live with that personally. I could live with it, but
Yeah, I'm sure
I
you could. It'll be nice for Solent to lift the trophy.
but on the flip side, I absolutely believe that players should play for as long as they humanly can, and I totally understand what you were saying before about putting playing as the priority right now, and coaching is always going to be there for you. And if you found that passion and you have some talent in that area, then by all means you can pursue that. You can keep evolving as a coach, alongside your playing career. Um, but yeah, injuries don't go away. You know, the worst thing you can do is just hope that they're going to take care of themselves. But I'm sure you've had this conversation with numerous people before now, and in the end, you're going to do it. It strikes me that you're a very kind of self assured and somewhat stubborn person, and you're going to do what you want to do. And obviously, everyone's got to respect you for making that decision. Look, before we go, I just want to say a big thank you because I know that you're not the kind of person to put yourself out to do these kind of things, and I really appreciate you kind of coming on tonight and sharing your story and your journey. And I think anybody listening is going to be even more inspired by kind of what you do and your approach and your work ethic. And like I say, I wait to see what you add to your game with with a sense of apprehension and a little bit of excitement, because the other thing that I am a massive proponent of is how talented the players are in our league. Like our league is a really good league. There are some great players in there. We've got quite a few on our team. I know there's some great players at Anglia and Reading and Bristol. I mean, I could go through every team in the league, and there's no lack of talent. Um,
Yeah,
what's
for sure.
what's been amazing to watch is how Ipswich have elevated themselves over that 3 year stretch, coming through Div 2 into Div 1, being super successful, falling to us, I might add, in that first year. You know, when you know we knew that was going to be a tough game. I think you guys knew that was going to be a hard fought game. Um, and then this season, you know, I think we split the games this year again. I'm not going to lie, winning at your place is really tough, and you know, I think in the manner we won, I think we won by 1 or 2 points in that first game. And then you guys dropped the hammer on us in that second game. So you know, we look forward to that battle kind of continuing over next year, and you know, whenever the season does start, maybe we can just say hi before the game, and then I'll wait until you've had a rest after the game, and we can catch up.
Wait until
We,
I've
we
caught my
can catch up.
breath.
Yeah, we can catch up again. Harriet, thank you so much for your time this evening. I wish you
No,
every
thank you.
success. Take care. Take care of yourself. Take care of that knee.
Yeah, of course.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening tonight. Thank you for tuning in. This is another episode of They Call Me Coach. Remember, you can always catch us every Wednesday at 7:15 on the live stream, or you can catch up on my YouTube channel, or watch us on Instagram and IGTV. Thanks very much, everyone. Have a great night. Stay safe and take care. Good night.